So, I'm sorry, I'm recording this in my car, so if the audio's bad, I probably won't even do anything with it, to be honest, but I wanted to get some thoughts out there on ComicsGate, and I'll tell you why. Google apparently knows, or still thinks, that I'm a fan of comics. I used to work at a comic book store. I used to buy comics, go to conventions, and I just drifted away from that and into other hobbies. This happens sometimes, it's not unusual. So I left that life behind me. I stopped working at the store, and that's when I really fell out of sort of that particular niche group. But Google apparently still thinks I'm really into comics. So I am getting recommended videos on the current ComicsGate situation, on the Richard C. Meyer versus Mark Waid situation. And I'm getting a lot of, well, naturally, because I was interested in comics, my interest was sort of piqued. Ethan Van Sciver is a big player in this ComicsGate movement. I feel comfortable calling it a movement. Let's refer to it as a movement. And I have a history with him. He probably doesn't remember, back from when I worked at the comic book store. Maybe one day I'll tell it, but there's a very funny story. Funny and probably embarrassing. Maybe he wouldn't be embarrassed, but back then, I know he was embarrassed by it, and I'm sure he's gotten over it. It was just a funny interaction at a local comic book shop. Anyway, so I noticed he was a big part of this, and because I have this history with him, and I am a fan of comics, I looked into it a little bit more, and full disclosure, I consider myself very liberal, very left-leaning. When I was raised to be Christian conservative, and when I left that sort of worldview behind, one of the things that I reveled in was being able to talk to conservative Christians that I disagreed with in a reasonable, rational way, and having, sort of a friendly discourse. And so I've been really disappointed in what I've seen surrounding this ComicsGate movement, because my understanding of what happened is this. There's a group of people who feel like the big two are getting too political, and they want to branch off and do their own thing. So they branched off and did their own thing. And now, for some reason, there's this gross, hateful, irrational, completely devoid of logic debate surrounding ComicsGate online, and I just don't understand. I recently, one of the videos that YouTube thought I'd be really interested in watching was an 8-minute video that was a debate, I suppose debate, it was 8 minutes, I mean, you can watch the video, between Kevin Logan and Ethan Van Sciver. And I'm laughing, if you watch the video, if you've seen it, or if you go to watch it, you'll know why I'm laughing, because it was absolutely embarrassing for both of them, I think. They were both so angry, and we're talking about comics. And I know it's more than that, because there is political motivation behind it. But I don't understand why people who are liberal on the left-leaning, as Kevin Logan definitely is, are so upset about this. It seems like we, on the left, got everything we wanted. We said, hey, look, this is the direction the big two are heading. If you don't like it, go and do your own thing. Good luck. And they went and did their own thing. I understand that there are people like Richard C. Meyer involved who I probably don't agree with anything he's ever said. I haven't heard much of what he's had to say, but I probably, just based on what I know about him, his refusal to use people's preferred pronouns, etc., I'm pretty positive we disagree on a lot. But have we really gotten to the point where we can't just talk about it? I mean, it seems like the discussion should have died once they said, fine, we're going to do our own thing. Right? That should have been the end of it. And then the only other conversations we should have had were like, I don't know, do you guys like Pop-Tarts? Like, it seems like that should have been the end of it. But now I'm seeing... And by the way, YouTube recommends, you guys all know, YouTube recommends videos from a long time ago too. But these, I looked into it. This is recent. This is ongoing today. There are videos being posted definitely in this past week, if not today, by Richard C. Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver surrounding the politics revolving around ComicsGate. But in my opinion, that's okay. They broke off and did their own thing, which is that's exactly what we wanted, right? I mean, again, I say we, and I'm saying that loosely because you have to remember, like I said at the beginning, I'm out of comics now. My opinion on this actually doesn't make a difference. I'm not going to buy their comics, but I'm also not going to buy Marvel and DC comics. That's just a fact. And that's okay, by the way, to think that what I'm saying is unimportant and irrelevant. I'm going to say it anyway. That's okay. But I'm so disappointed in the people I've seen on the left, in particular Mark Waid and Gail Simone, two, back whenever I was working at the comic book store, these were titans. Their names were well known. Everyone knew them. They were everyone who was interested in comics. You've heard their names before, Mark Waid especially. And so to see them sort of, like I said, it feels so irrational to just sort of screech and scream at this movement that's not even in your lane. Like, they're still at the big two, right? Aren't they? Did I just say something dumb? Does Gail Simone still work for Marvel? Or DC? She worked for DC back in the day whenever I was... Or was it Marvel? Well, whatever. Her name still has clout, is what I'm trying to say. Her name is still a name in the comic book community. I know that for a fact. Mark Waid as well. They're still doing cons, is what I should say. And so it's just disappointing to see, this group branch off, and they go to an entirely separate lane. They're completely somewhere else now. They're on a different interstate. And Gail Simone and Mark Waid are still screaming at them from the other road. You guys can't be here. You guys need to shut up. You guys... And I don't get it. It seems like they got everything they wanted, and that wasn't enough. Now, I'm not trying to say that the ComicsGate guys and gals are totally blameless. I've seen some of the instigating because of all this, YouTube recommendation stuff. I saw the Jim Jeffries interview with Richard C. Meyer, and it's like, yeah, Richard C. Meyer didn't have to take that interview. That was to sort of, I assume the reason he took that interview was because he wanted more people to hear about his thing. So he's putting himself, ComicsGate, I mean. So he's putting himself out there. And when you put yourself out there, as everyone who puts themselves out there knows, you sometimes get flack, But so basically, all I'm trying to say is they're not entirely blameless. I know he's said inflammatory things before, and he's putting himself out there, so he's going to get some backlash. Ethan Van Sciver, the same. He's said some inflammatory things before, and he's putting himself out there as a public figure, so he's inevitably going to catch flack. This is just the nature of it. The nature of putting yourself out there. What the hell am I going on about right now? Sorry, I got distracted. I'm actually trying to drive right now, and so it just occurred to me I've been in a speech circle for like 2 minutes. I'm just circling the drain. Anyway, back on point here. Those guys are not, the guys and girls from ComicsGate are not entirely blameless. done some instigating. They've said some things that they know. I mean, they're designed to irritate people at the big two, people who are okay with the diversity sort of making its way into comics. But like I said, I'm extremely disappointed with the reaction from the left. I mean, we're supposed to be, and I'm not saying everyone can be whoever they want. There's not a trademark of the left that's like, if you're on the left, you must behave this way. That's not what I mean. I just mean that what I enjoyed when I first, left my, like I said, I was raised conservative Christian, and now I'm not. So you can guess sort of what a huge journey that was for me. It was when I was 21 and 22 is when I made this change, which was enormous for me. And the thing I enjoyed the most was rational conversation with people I disagreed with, both on the left and on the right. And this just seems like if someone does something, like there's a barrel of infractions, and I don't know what's in that barrel, but it's full of infractions. And if someone picks an infraction out of that barrel, we're no longer allowed to talk to them. So for example, Richard C. Meyer, misgendering people. I want to be perfectly clear that I would openly speak with him about that. I would try to get in his head and hear what he had to say, and be upfront with him and tell him I think that's wrong. I think it's a moral wrong. But I want to know why you feel justified speaking this way to people who haven't done you any wrong. Obviously, like I said, I'm very new to this story, so sorry if I'm getting all this wrong. I know he had some issues with some, I think 2 trans creators on Twitter telling him that they were going to harm him physically, or they wished he had been harmed physically. And so you might be thinking like, well, he's justified there. And I still don't think he is. I don't think it's a tit for tat issue. I think it's, this is how we act in society issue. But anyway, so he has had his issues with trans creators, but to me, that's not a, like in the episode of Black Mirror, White Christmas is the name of the episode. The block feature, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should look it up. It's really cool. That block feature, it seems like there's a list of infractions that someone on the left is they're keeping track of, and I don't know where it is or what it contains. But if you carry out one of those infractions, you're just blocked, and every time you try to talk, you just get screamed down. And I really dislike that. I really dislike that. I really think we should be just a little bit better than that, because the fact of the matter is we aren't going to change anyone's mind by not talking to them. And in this particular case, I think it's sort of extra cringy because the people in the ComicsGate movement, they did exactly what they were asked to do by people in the mainstream, which was leave and go do your own thing. And so what it looks like to me as an outsider, just sort of viewing this now, with fresh eyes, what it looks like is people on the left got really mad that ComicsGate was successful. What they actually meant when they said, hey, go do your own thing, was stop working and become homeless, which I'm against. I'm against that. I know people on the left who are very extreme in their beliefs about, like let's take white supremacists, for example. They're like, hey, look, these people, if they're out as a white supremacist, call their employers, let their family members know, etc. And I don't know how I feel about that, because I don't think the best solution to change someone's mind is to prevent them from contributing to society in a way that will make them homeless. And when I say that, I of course mean like calling their employers, like saying like, okay, it's now my job as someone who is has a social interest in avoiding white supremacists. It's my job to make sure you don't have a job. And that, I think, is odd. I've never agreed with that. Maybe I should think about that a little bit more. But anyway, in this case, one of the things that sparked ComicsGate was, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say sparked it, but really gave it momentum, was this Richard C. Meyer versus Mark Waid lawsuit, where Richard C. Meyer is claiming in the lawsuit, if I understand it, I'm not a lawyer, of course, that Mark Waid lost him work by calling Antarctic Press and saying, hey, look, you don't want to work with this guy because you don't agree with him. And working with someone you don't agree with is bad, I guess. You know, in my head, that's just something that adults do. I don't know. Maybe I'm naive. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I'm not very bright, and I know that. But this to me seems like, it just seems childish, and it really hurts, because Mark Waid could have picked up the phone and called Richard C. Meyer. Why did he have to pick up the phone and call Antarctic Press? Well, I just don't understand. And so I'm kind of, how long has this been going on here? Oh boy, it's been going on for a while. So, all I really want to say with this is, I want to get my thoughts out there, because, like I said, you know, the Google gods have determined that I'm really interested in comics and ComicsGate, so they're just pumping those videos into my recommendations. And so I just want to get my thoughts out about it. It's really a shame that ComicsGate already, I think because of Gamergate, this is why this happened. Either that, or I'm really confused and don't know what I'm talking about. But I hate that ComicsGate has already been associated with white supremacy and racism and sexism, because as best I can tell, again, I could be a complete buffoon, the wool could be over my eyes, but as best I can tell, mainstream comics said, we don't want you here, go do your own thing, and they did. And so it just feels like any claim outside of they did exactly what we asked them to do, it feels childish, it feels unnecessary, it feels like the conversation should have ended at, go do your own thing. And then once they did that, like I said, there's just nothing left to talk about but Pop-Tarts. They did it. Let's move on. Anyway, I should probably wrap this up. I'm just thinking out loud at this point. Like I said, this video will probably never go anywhere. And keep in mind, please, if anyone does hear this, I don't know what I'm talking about. These are my initial thoughts after watching a couple videos on YouTube. I'm sure there's information I don't have. And that's it. I like expressing my opinions and thoughts. So that's what I'm doing now. And like I said, if any of this is misinformation, please let me know, and I'll correct it. I'll fix it. But right now, I'm extremely disappointed in the way Mark Waid acted. Politically, we're aligned in a lot of ways, and I just think this was a childish move. I don't think ComicsGate, I don't understand what the problem is with letting ComicsGate be their own thing and letting them go either be successful or fail. Whatever they do, they're out of mainstream comics now, which I thought was the goal. Anyway, I'll wrap this up now.